Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Irina and I live in Moscow. On this channel we explore the most picturesque streets of Moscow. And today we are going to explore one of the oldest and most beautiful streets, Prechistenka.
Let's take a walk through the world of Bulgakov's novels, admire some stunning historical mansions, and discover where to find museums dedicated to Russia's greatest writers. Prechistenka Street dates back to the 14th and 15th centuries. It was a part of the road leading from the Kremlin to the Novodevichy convent. The name comes from an icon of the Virgin Mary, Prechistaya, meaning the most pure. Before that, it was called Chertolskaya after a local stream named Chertary. But the word chort sounds like devil in Russian, and the deeply religious Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich didn't like it. In 1958, he ordered the street renamed to Prechistenka, after the icon of the purest Mother of God. Quite a dramatic shift from devilish to divine. In the 17th and 18th centuries, Prechistenka became popular with noble families like the Golitsins and Dolgorukovs. By the 19th century, it was one of Moscow's most elegant streets, lined with beautiful mansions. During Soviet times, it was renamed Kropotkin Street after the famous anarchist and thinker Pyotr Kropotkin, but its original name was restored in 1991. Today, Prechistenka is a quiet, charming place full of museums and historic buildings, including the Tolstoy Museum and the Pushkin Museum.
And our walk starts at Prechistensky Gate Square, the historic spot where Moscow's Boulevard ring begins.
Prechistensky Gate Square got its name from the old city gates that used to stand here back in the 16th century. At the time, the gates were part of the city's defensive wall and marked the beginning of the road leading to the Novodevichy convent. They were named after the Church of the Most Pure Virgin located inside the convent. By the 17th century, the gates had become an important entrance to the city, and a small square naturally formed around them. Although the gates were dismantled in the 19th century, the square kept its historic name. Today, it's a lovely place where the past meets the present, and a perfect spot to begin our walk through Moscow's history. The White Chambers, or Белые Palaty, were built in the late 17th century as the main house of the Prozorovsky estate. The building is a great example of Russian Baroque architecture. In the 18th century, they became the property of the Famitsyn family, who made some changes to the building. By the late 19th century, it was a tavern and later a cinema in the early 20th century. During Soviet times, it was turned into apartments.
In 1970s, the city center was heavily renovated, and there were plans to demolish the White Chambers. But during the reconstruction work, the building's history was discovered, and it was decided to preserve the architectural monument, and the restoration work began.
In the 1990s, the White Chambers became part of Moscow's Cultural Heritage Department, and today the building remains empty, waiting for its next chapter.
Right across the street, there is another stunning building, the former Forbriher Pharmacy, one of the oldest in Moscow.
The pharmacy building was constructed in the late 18th century, around 1790. Its architecture is a mix of classicism and late Baroque. The facade is decorated with Corinthian pilasters, and the central arched window has detailed stucco with garlands of flowers and fruit. Pretty fancy for a pharmacy. In 1873, the building was bought by Andrei Forbriher, a master pharmacist from a well-known pharmacy family. He opened a pharmacy here that quickly became popular with Moscow's upper class, thanks to its high-quality service and a wide range of medicines. Today, the building still works as a pharmacy and keeps its historic charm. Just a few steps down Prechistenka Street, you will see a beautiful estate with a rich history. It was built in the mid-18th century in the style of classicism and first belonged to the noble Rzhevsky family. Over the years, it changed hands several times, including ownership by General Mikhail Orlov, a hero of the Napoleonic War. In 1915, the estate was purchased by Maurice, a French haberdasher, who transformed it into a cultural hub. During Soviet times, the building was nationalized and used by various public organizations. Today the building stands as a testament to Moscow's layered past, reflecting the architectural elegance of its era.
Just a few steps from Prechistenka Street in Chertolsky Lane stands a remarkable piece of 17th century Moscow, the white stone chambers often referred to as the Zgura Tower.
Built in the late 1600s, these chambers are one of the few buildings in Moscow that still look much like they did back then. The bright red porch is especially rare. You will only find similar ones in the Kremlin. The thick walls and small windows make the building look a bit like a fortress. It was likely built to be strong and safe. And it even survived big events like the Time of Troubles and the fire of 1812. In the 1920s, a young art historian named Vladimir Zgura moved in. He loved old Russian buildings and started the Society for the Study of Russian Estates. The group met right here, which is why the building later became known as the Zgura Tower. Today, this historic house is a part of the Pushkin Museum and is used for exhibitions. It's a great place to get a feel for what 17th century Moscow was really like. Just a few steps from the 17th century Zgura Tower, we come to another gem of Prechistenka, the Khrushchev-Seleznyov estate.
And today this elegant mansion houses the museum celebrating the life and legacy of Alexander Pushkin.
This elegant mansion was built after the fire of 1812 and first belonged to Alexander Khrushchev, a retired officer. Later it passed to the Seleznyov family. The house is a great example of Moscow's empire style. Just look at those columns and sculpted details. Over time, it served many purposes: a boarding school, shared flats, even a toy museum. Since 1961, it's been home to the Alexander Pushkin Museum, showcasing his life, fairy tales, and Russian art of the 18th and 19th centuries.
Actually, Pushkin didn't live here, but the Khrushchevs often hosted cultural gatherings, so it's quite possible that Pushkin visited this place, but we don't know it for sure. The mansion was chosen for the museum because it reflects the atmosphere of his times. After the elegance of Pushkin's era, it's time to dive into the mysterious and satirical world of Mikhail Bulgakov. Right across the street, we find the Kostyakova rental building.
This is a beautiful 5-story house from 1910. It's done in a neoclassical style with elements of early modernism. And if you look closely, you will notice sculpted panels with ancient Greek-inspired scenes just above the windows. The house was built by Yevdokia Kostyakova, a wealthy merchant and well-known philanthropist in Moscow. It brought her rental income, but also became a real landmark in the area. There is also a fun literary fact. In the 1920s, Mikhail Bulgakov used to visit his friend, artist Boris Shaposhnikov, who lived here. Some believe this is where Professor Preobrazhensky first ran into Sharik in the heart of a dog.
So if you are a Bulgakov fan, this place might feel oddly familiar. And now let's stop by one of the most luxurious mansions on the street, the Konshina mansion. People nicknamed it the Million House, not just for its price, but for its rich appearance and luxury.
It belonged to Alexandra Konshina, the widow of a wealthy textile magnate. Originally dating back to the 18th century, it was transformed in the early 1900s into a stunning example of neoclassical architecture with touches of Art Nouveau. In 1922, the mansion became the Central House of Scientists, a cultural hub for the Russian Academy of Science. In Soviet times, a large annex was added to the side of the building, typical of that era.
And you don't need to be a scientist to get inside. You can go on a tour, catch a concert, and even grab a business lunch in the historic dining room. Just walk in and enjoy the vibe.
We are turning into Prechistensky Lane to take a look at the sculpture of Vera Mukhina, a legendary Soviet sculptor. Mukhina is the author of some truly iconic works, including the famous Worker and Kolkhoz Woman, Bread, Monument to Tchaikovsky, Land and Water. The house where Vera lived and worked is located next to her monument. Mukhina lived and worked here from 1947 until 1953, creating some of her works. Vera herself wanted the studio to stay alive after her passing, and that's exactly what happened. Today, part of the house is still home to her descendants, while the other part is used as a workshop for icon restoration, a space full of history and quiet creativity, just the way she imagined it.
If you love Russian literature, this next stop is definitely for you. The Leo Tolstoy Museum on Prechistenka Street.
The museum is located in the former Lopukhin-Stanitskaya mansion, a beautiful example of early 19th century empire style. Just look at the elegant symmetry, stucco details, and those classic columns. It really captures the vibe of old aristocratic Moscow.
And to be clear, Tolstoy never lived in this building. This is not his house.
But the museum inside is all about his life and work. It was founded in 1920s and has an amazing collection of original letters, manuscripts, early editions of his books, and portraits of the writer and his family. So, if you are a fan of War and Peace or Anna Karenina, this is the perfect place to dive a little deeper into Tolstoy's world. Just across the street, you will find the Rekk apartment building, a stunning early 20th century rental house built for merchant Yakov Rekk. Like many others at the time, he invested in rental property. It's got that perfect blend of neoclassical and Art Nouveau, with big arched windows, decorative balconies, and lots of elegant details.
But it's not just a beautiful building. This house has a real literary connection. Mikhail Bulgakov mentioned this building twice in his books.
It's believed to have inspired the famous Kalabukhov house from the heart of a dog. Bulgakov used to visit friends who lived here, and he borrowed real features of the building, like the grand marble staircase, the glass-paneled entrance, and even those classic coat racks for his fictional setting.
It's also believed that Mikhail Bulgakov based his famous evil apartment on the Fabergé apartment in this very building.
In The Master and Margarita, he describes things like a chandelier that Behemoth swings from, an old iron fireplace, and wooden benches on the stair landings, all of which really existed here.
And right next door, there is another cool little detail you might miss if you are not looking up.
A few years ago, during restoration work, they discovered an old painted sign on the wall. It says "Хлебопек," which means baker. The sign dates back to the 1920s, and after it had been found, the lettering was carefully restored. Now it's fully visible again, a real piece of everyday Moscow history. It's like a little time machine hidden in plain sight.
And just a few steps from that humble bread ad, we are standing in front of one of the most elegant mansions on the street, the Yermolov mansion.
It was originally designed by the famous architect Matvey Kazakov and built in the late 18th century in a beautiful classical style. Later, it became the property of the family of General Alexei Yermolov, a legendary hero of the War of 1812. While he probably never lived here himself, his relatives did, and the place still gives off serious aristocratic vibes. The house also played a role in the world of dance. The famous dancer Isidora Duncan lived here with the Russian poet Sergei Yesenin. She even opened a dance school in the building. During Soviet times, it was used by different state organizations. But today it's fully restored and open for cultural and official events. With its tall columns, graceful stucco, and that classic balcony, the mansion is a true highlight of Prechistenka.
To show you our next landmark, we need to take a little detour, but I just can't skip it.
The Mindovsky mansion is a real gem. Built in 1906 for wealthy merchant Nikolai Mindovsky, it's a striking example of neoclassicism with touches of Art Nouveau style. Just look at those arched windows, mosaics, and elegant columns. The building is full of character. In 1927, the mansion served as the Austrian embassy, and from 1938, it became the German embassy. In 1944, Winston Churchill spent a night here during a visit to Moscow. After the World War II, the mansion once again became the Austrian embassy in 1955. During Soviet times, the mansion was nationalized and used by various institutions. And today it's still home to the Austrian embassy.
How do you imagine a fire station should look? Maybe like this? Or maybe like this? I don't know what fire stations look like in your city, but here in Moscow it looks like this.
This is the Prechistenka fire station, and honestly, it looks more like a nobleman's mansion than a place for fire trucks. The building was originally constructed in 1764 in the style of classicism. Over the years, it changed owners many times and was rebuilt more than once. Today, it shows features of late classicism as well, all about symmetry, clean proportions, and elegance. Since 1835, it's been home to a fire station, and yes, it's still working today. If this building looks oddly familiar to you, you are absolutely right. This is the Kulagin apartment building, but it's much better known as Professor Preobrazhensky house, or the Kalabukhov house from Mikhail Bulgakov's famous novel The Heart of a Dog. Most of the story takes place right here. The building was constructed in 1904, designed by architect Sergei Kulagin, and originally owned by Ekaterina Pavlovskaya. In the early 20th century, the writer's uncle, Nikolai Pokrovsky, a well-known gynecologist, lived in this very building. He later became the inspiration for the character of Professor Preobrazhensky. In Heart of a Dog, this building is described in detail, from the grand staircase to the layout of the professor's apartment.
It's here that the newly transformed comrade Sharikov demands his legal 16 square yards of living space, turning the professor's refined world upside down.
Today, this building remains a cult landmark for Bulgakov fans. And here is another stunning building that's hard to miss, the Zurab Tsereteli Art Gallery. The museum is located in the 18th century mansion that once belonged to the noble Dolgorukov family. Over the years, the building changed hands several times, getting new owners and new purposes. But since 2001, it's been home to the art gallery of Zurab Tsereteli. Tsereteli is a well-known Soviet and Russian artist. He was known for his monumental and recognizable style, which combined elements of avant-garde, realism, and folk art. Some of Tsereteli's notable works: Friendship for Eternity, Good Wins Evil, Monument of Victory, Chronicles of Georgia.
And now I'm about to show you a truly unique building. At first glance, it might look like just another elegant Moscow mansion, but it has a hidden gem inside.
This is the Okhotnikov estate, and it's got quite a story. The original house on this spot was destroyed in a fire. In 1808, nobleman Pavel Okhotnikov bought the land and completely rebuilt the estate. What we see today is the result of that, a beautiful example of early 19th century neoclassical style. Over the years, the building changed owners a few times, but from 1868 to 1921, it became home to the famous Polivanov Gymnasium, one of the most respected private schools in Moscow. So inside these stylish walls, generations of students once studied Latin, Greek, science, and literature.
And this building is unique not just because of its elegant facade, it also has a hidden inner courtyard.
Just behind the estate, there is another interesting spot, the old Polivanov stables. Originally built after the fire of 1812, the buildings were part of the Okhotnikov estate and first used as stables. Later, during the Polivanov gymnasium years, they were used as a sports hall. In the 1920s, the estate became home to the State Academy of Artistic Sciences. By the 1930s, the stables got a second floor and were turned into housing. Today, the main house hosts a children's art school and creative studios. The quiet courtyard hasn't changed much in over 200 years. A perfect spot to feel the atmosphere of old Moscow and take a couple of photos.
Every step of this street feels like walking through a work of art. There are so many more beautiful mansions and stunning apartment buildings to discover, but it's impossible to show you everything at once. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me your thumbs up and see you in the next ones.